Ya, dia kan udah.
Okay, hello, good morning everyone, good afternoon for those of you who are in Australia, and good day to any of you who are from other parts of the globe. Welcome to the CAIPSDCC webinar. This is the 11th session, which will talk about the sustainable livelihoods and local economies on small islands. Hi everyone who are joining from Zoom and then also from YouTube. Hi all. As you can see there, you can say hi to each other using the chat box so that we can know where you are from. I know that from the registration, we have more than 1,300 people registered, and some of you are from outside of Indonesia, so that's great. So yeah, this is the CAIPSDCC, the 11th webinar, and thank you very much for those of you who have registered to our event. We have more than 1,300 registered participants, and it is more than the capacity of the Zoom account that we have. So our sincere apology for those who can't enter the Zoom room. Hence, we also set up a live stream option via YouTube so that everyone that cannot enter the Zoom can join that through YouTube. You can also share the link to your colleagues and friends. You can all say hi to each other by writing down your name and your organization, and then which city you are from in the chat box, not the Q&A. And I'm Lia Zakia, the program coordinator of CAIPSDCC. CAIPSDCC is a collaborative Australia-Indonesia programs on sustainable development and climate change. It is a collaboration between Griffith University in Australia and Universitas Indonesia, along with some other universities in Indonesia, such as Universitas Hasanuddin in Makassar. The collaboration has several components. The first component is a research collaboration on climate change and sustainable development. We focused on the 4 themes. The first one is impacts of climate change on planetary and human health. Second one is sustainable landscape management. Third one is energy transition and carbon pricing. And the fourth one is increasing the resilience of small islands in Eastern Indonesia. This research collaboration components aims at enhancing the science to policy principle. Therefore, we have included various stakeholders to the research, national and local government, private sectors, NGOs, and communities. The second component is the capacity building. The third one is student mobility between Australia and Indonesia. And the fourth one is the high-level dialogue and a series of webinars. Today is under this component. Now, I'd like to explain some housekeeping rules to make sure that we have an enjoyable session and a meaningful discussions. The participants don't have to fill in any attendance list. We will have attendance report from Zoom, so you can just focus on the materials. You can write down your questions in the Q&A box, not the chat, the Q&A box. We usually receive a lot of questions, and it is challenging for us to answer all, but we will do our best. Make sure that you read the existing questions first before you write down your own, just in case it has similarity with yours. And then you can just upvote it by clicking the thumbs up icon. If you see, and then it is very encouraged that all participants see the Q&A box and then vote the question that is the most popular, because later the chair will pick that question for our discussion. For YouTube viewers, you can also write down your questions. Our team will move it to the Q&A box in the Zoom to ensure that it can be seen by other participants at Zoom to be upvoted. The chair will focus on the most popular questions with the most upvote or the most relevant to the discussion at that moment. The presentation materials can be downloaded in our Google Drive account. We will share the link at the end of the webinar. Information about the requests for certificates will be shared in the end of the webinar, so stay tuned. We also conduct poll today, so I hope all of you can participate by answering the question, and we will share the result later. Bapak, Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, hi everyone. Oh, we have like so many participants from various regions in Indonesia. That's great. Welcome. So happy to have you here. And before we start the discussion, let's hear the opening remarks from Prof. Kathleen Byrne. Prof. Kathleen is the director of the Griffith Asia Institute. Prof. Kathleen's research is focused on Australian diplomacy with a special interest in Australia's engagement in the Asia-Pacific region. Prof. Kathleen currently delivers training on soft power and public diplomacy and international policy and tradecraft through Australia's Diplomatic Academy in Canberra. She consults on occasion to the government in the areas of strategic foreign policy and diplomatic practice. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Prof. Kathleen.
Thank you, Leah. Terima kasih, and it's really great to be here with you again. So selamat pagi to all of those who are joining us from Indonesia, and good afternoon to all of those joining us from Australia. So welcome wherever you are. Let me begin really with something we do customarily in Australia, and that is to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting. For me in Brisbane, that's the Jakarta people, but many of you are joining us from many lands across the widest reaches of this virtual platform. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend that respect to all First Nations peoples, including those who might be joining us today. So this is the 11th webinar in a series that's being brought to you by the collaborative Australia-Indonesia Program on Sustainable Development and Climate Change, or CAIPSDCC, which I always have trouble saying. Leah, you say it so much better than I do. But really what we're trying to do through these webinars, as well as through our research and our dialogues, is to make a contribution to each other, to our nations, to our region, to provide and disseminate knowledge, practical knowledge, that will help all of us actually think about and tackle the multidimensional challenges that we face in our world today. I'd also like to acknowledge a couple of special people who sit within this collaborative program. Of course, firstly, Pak Rahmat Witula. Pak, I hope you're watching on YouTube. You're such a great supporter and we really value the support you give us. Prof. Yatna Supriyatna, Director of ISA, the Institute for Sustainable Earth and Resources at UI, and Prof. Brendan Mackey, who leads the Climate Action Program at Griffith University. All of these people are part of the leadership and governance of our program, and they're amazing academics and researchers, and they keep us inspired and aspirational about what we might be able to achieve for our futures, for our shared future. I'd like to make special mention of our speakers today as well, who bring world-class expertise and knowledge and practical experience to the topic we're going to be talking about, sustainable livelihoods and local economies on small islands. It was interesting for me as I was thinking about this topic that in this COVID-19 era, as we're watching our nation's borders close, cities and communities lock down, we're all experiencing something of what it might be to live in small island communities. And I think that's really important to think empathetically about small islands. But of course, we need a lot more imagination, I think, as well, to think about small islands. And I don't want to at all diminish the experiences of communities that are located physically on small islands within our geography. Pak Rahmat reminded us last week that Indonesia, has a particular experience when it comes to small islands, with 17,000 plus small islands and about 6,000 of those supporting communities. These islands face a range of vulnerabilities, from rising sea levels to salination to being right at the forefront sometimes of extreme weather events. All of those things putting extra pressure on livelihoods, the lives and livelihoods of the people who live there. At the same time, they have big responsibilities, particularly when it comes to the ocean and to marine resources. So small islands become supersized when we think about their ocean space and the way that they can protect and preserve the marine environment and its resources while also building positive livelihoods is something that's really important to us. So I'll hand over now to our panel, and I'd like to say a big thank you to Masaga, who will be the moderator today. Thank you. It's a big task, and I really look forward to having you conduct this conversation. I'd like to thank all of our speakers who represent government, with maritime affairs and fisheries, the NGO sector, and in particular the World Bank and academia. And if I can please make mention of my colleague, Prof. Tapan, it's really great to have you participate in this panel. And before I finish, if I could make special mention of Prof. JJ, who is on the panel today and who's really been the driving force behind this series of webinars on adaptation challenges for small islands with a focus on Eastern Indonesia. Prof. JJ, I don't know if you remember this, but it's about a year since you hosted us at Hasanuddin University in Makassar. And I think one of our most productive workshops happened on a boat on the Bay of Makassar, where we really started to develop our ideas, particularly around building research collaborations that could bring academics, government officials, NGOs together to talk about some of the key issues we're facing. We've started to take this forward. We have a bit of a way to go, but I want to thank you in particular for your hospitality then and for really helping us understand some of the driving issues at play today. And finally, a big thank you to Leah and Hendika from the CAIPSDCC Secretariat, who do so much work behind the scenes to bring all of this together. We're really lucky to have them within our team, and they're very much a valued part of that team. Leah, can I hand back to you? And I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kathleen. So that's actually really right. Like a year ago, Prof. JJ and with Ibu Erna's support as well, hosting our research discussion with style. We did it on the boat on Sunset. That was great. So thank you. Prof. Kathleen is the lead for the CAIPSDCC together with Prof. Yatna. So her role has been really important in setting this out and making the dots of people, connecting people. So thank you, Prof. Kathleen. And next, before we start the discussion, of course, I need to introduce our wonderful host for today, chair for today, Mas Anarga Setiadi, or can be called Mas Arga. Hold on, I cancel the spotlight. Yep. Okay, so Mas Aga is a researcher focusing on tropical marine ecosystem and biodiversity. He completed his bachelor degree in biology from Universitas Indonesia and earned his master's in marine biology and ecology from James Cook University, Australia. His interests include the ecology, climate resilience and restoration of coral reefs and other tropical marine ecosystems, management and biological effects of marine protected areas. He joined RCCC UI, or Research Center on Climate Change, Universitas Indonesia in 2017, and is currently working on issues about the ecology and conservation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our chair today, Mas Aga. Mas Aga, silakan.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
There
and
you go.
You to start the video.
Start my video. Okay.
Yes.
So thank you for the warm welcome, Belia. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to all of the excellent speakers, those who are joining us from home and their offices. Our speakers today will greatly enrich the discussion on how livelihoods and economies of small islands can be made sustainable. We are looking forward to have a dynamic discussion with all of you joining from Zoom or YouTube. My name is Anarga Setiadi, Research Associate from Research Center for Climate Change, University of Indonesia, and I will be your session chair for today. Let's start our discussion today on sustainable livelihoods on small islands. Small islands are not only facing climate-related disasters, but also non-climatic natural disasters. All of these risks are interconnected, and Eastern Indonesia, in particular, has rich and diverse terrains and geodiversity. Indonesia is also the center of three important ecosystems in the world: coral reefs, mangroves, and seagrass. Indonesia, so these ecosystems and its biophysical components hold an important role in supporting and protecting the small islands from the risks it faces, especially the climate crisis. Mangroves, seagrass, coral reefs, and fish are ecosystem components that hold an essential role in the ecosystem itself, but also for the livelihood of island communities. Tying these together is the necessity of multi-stakeholder collaboration between very diverse sectors of the public and the private and all other institutions. And this is a very critical area because, as we may have known, a lot of ancient societies in the tropical Pacific, for instance, like the the Easter Island have collapsed because probably due to the likely mismanagement of natural resources. One of the hypotheses, anyways. So, with those in mind, we have 4 speakers to discuss these issues. We have Dr. Pamuji Lestari, Ibu Tari from Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, Professor JJ or Professor Jamaluddin Jompa from Hasanuddin University, Associate Professor Tapan Sarker from Griffith University, and Pak Ahmad Baihaki, Master of Science from the World Bank. Let's begin by introducing Ibu Tari. Let's introduce her first. Dr. Insinyur Pamuji Lestari, Master of Science, is the expert staff of the Minister for Marine Ecology and Resources, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, Republic of Indonesia. She received her master's degree from the Faculty of Agriculture, University of Kentucky, USA in 1991, and her doctorate degree in 1998 from the Laboratoire d'Ecologie Terrestre, University Paul of Sabatier, France. Prior to that current position, she worked for the Coordinating Ministry for Human Development and Cultural Affairs as the Assistant to the Deputy for Empowerment of Rural Areas from 2015 to 2016, and then as an Assistant to the Deputy for Cultural Heritage from 2016 to 2020. For her continuous work and dedication for more than 30 years, she is awarded Satya Lancana Karya Satya in 2017. Let's provide the floor to Dr. Pamuji Lestari or Ibu Tari. Please welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Anarga Setiadi, Mas Aga, as the session chair of this webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Fellow speakers and participants, good morning. As Mas Arga introduced me, I am Pamuji Lestari. I am the expert staff of the Minister for Marine Ecology and Resources, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, Republic of Indonesia. Just a moment, please. First of all, I would like to specially thank to Prof. Kathleen, Director of Griffith Asia Institute, Prof. Yatna Supriyatna, University of Indonesia, Prof. Rahmat Witular and Dr. Erna Witular as the founder of Collaborative Australia-Indonesia Program on Sustainable Development and Climate Change, Prof. Jamaluddin Jompa, University of Hasanuddin, for having me as one of the speakers in this very prestigious webinar. I'd like to present this issue from the government perspective. So, my presentation will highlight in Indonesia policy and strategy for sustainable livelihoods and local economics and small islands. I'll give you a quick overview on small island definition. Just a moment, please. Little bit technical problem. I'll give you a quick overview on small islands definition. Referring to Act number 27 year 2000, June number 1 year 2014 on management and coastal and small island is an island areas with less or equal to 2,000 kilometers square with its surrounding ecosystem. Small islands have ecological, social, and economic characteristics that make the island become more interesting. As an archipelagic country, Indonesia has 17,504 islands with 6,400,000 kilometers square water and 108,000 kilometer coastline. From 17,504 islands, only 37 islands are more than 2,000 kilometers. The rest is considered as small islands. Within the small islands, less than 11% is populated and rest is unpopulated. Until 2019, Indonesia has already registered 16,671 islands to the United Nations, and we are ready to register 833 islands more. There are 3 islands shared with other countries, that is island of Kalimantan, Papua, and Timor. Furthermore, Indonesia has 111 outermost small islands. 42 of them are populated, while the rest is unpopulated. The function of our outermost island is a security and prosperity belt. Indonesia has 16,852 very small islands, or 96.77%, with the size less than 100 kilometers. All very small islands and small islands only contributed 0.99% of the land of Indonesia. The use of small islands and surrounding waters is carried out based on a comprehensive and integrated ecological and economic unity with nearby large islands. Focus on economic function, small islands have high potential for development and open investment. This slide explains us that despite its small size, small islands have big challenges, big problems, big issues, and also big agendas. Big challenges in developing sustainable marine and fisheries management economically and ecologically. Big problems to reduce marine debris and minimize anthropogenic and natural degradation. Big issues regarding industrial development to boost community welfare. Big agendas to improve marine and small island sustainable spatial management. And Indonesia Marine and Fisheries Development Policy 2020 until 2024, Goal 4 shows that the management of small islands through coordination with the relevant agency. In managing the small islands resources, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries coordinated to the line ministries such as Ministry of Transportation, Education and Culture, Health, Defense, Villages Development of Disadvantaged Region and Transmigration, Agriculture, Energy and Mineral Resources, Agrarian Affairs and Special Planning or National Land Agency, General Works and Public Housing, and also the Ministry of Communication and Informatics. Community-based fishery management and sustainable livelihood achieved through management for sustainable use of resources, utilization to improve community welfare, monitoring to determine resource status and availability, and also assessment for policy and improvement. The slide shows us the program and activity to improve community development and productive economy and small island that has been conducted by the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. The type of sport will be different from one to another, depends on the needs and potential resources of the area, such as surveillance and fisheries tool, diving equipments, etc. And I will also give you our next program, our way forward. They are first developing existing program, and the second networking optimization with academic institution or university, C Grand College, or we call it Mitra Bahari. And third, island adaptation to local university, including the activity of education, empowerment, and research. And the fourth, aquaculture, including floating gates, also seaweed farming. The fifth is the seafood fisheries, which is mixed mangrove and also fish pond. The sixth is a specific agriculture. We hope that small island can be planted also with the breadfruit, nutmeg, dragon fruit, etc. And the last, sustainable small island community and the village-based livelihood. We develop the tourism, infrastructure, education, and food security. I will show you also our program that already be done in small island, such as marine tourism village or Desa Wisata Bahari, marine food villages, Desa Pangan Laut, and also advanced fisherman village atau Kampung Nelayan Maju. We also want to develop agro-marine fisheries tourism. And the last, as the president gave us the direction, we also have to develop the sustainable small island fisheries industries. I think that's all for my presentation because the time is limited. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ibu Tari. Yeah, that was a really.
So I just a little bit hurry.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, it was a wonderful presentation. I was really quite. I really loved the way you highlighted lots of different resources from these small islands. It just didn't occur to me that it was actually possible to to do something like marine forestry. Sorry, what was it?
Agro-ecotourism.
Agro-ecotourism in the small islands.
Yeah.
It was really
not
interesting.
Far from Mr. Aga, actually we can see in Pulau Tidung Kecil actually.
I see.
Not far from in Jakarta, we just have a boat only 1 or 1.5 hours, and you can see the agro-ecotourism. There is also the aquaculture, there is also the tourism center, and also the Museum of Paus. And in RSA, you can do snorkeling, also diving.
Yeah, that would be really wonderful. Yeah.
It's the very first one, but we have also many in Morotai. We have the Marine Morotai and Maluku. We have also the Marine and Fisheries Center there.
I see. I've been to.
Terpadu, yeah. That's just the outermost island. I think it's very very far in Maluku, but it's okay. We have many activities there in Morotai.
Yeah, I've been to Morotai once. It was a really beautiful island. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that you've been developing the agriculture tourism as well in Morotai. It's a wonderful place there.
Yeah. Actually, we hope that the community, the island community, can also produce the souvenir. If they come there, we can do fishing, and they have recreation to have the high immune from the small island, so they can back to the cities. They have more healthy and take some souvenir from the small islands. What we want to do is how we also working with the line ministers. I think so. The Minister of Cooperative will also be one of our mitra or our collaboration in the island. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for the explanation as well. Yeah. So let's move on to the next speaker. So our second speaker is Professor Jamaluddin Jompa, also known as Professor JJ. And Professor Jamaluddin Jompa is a marine ecologist with a considerable research experience on coral reef biology, marine biology, and coral reef bioprospecting, and coral reef ecology and coastal management. He has a vast number of international publications and books produced in collaboration with international researchers and organizations. He accomplished his doctoral degree at James Cook University, Australia. He currently serves as the Dean of Graduate School of Hasanuddin University and the Chairman of Center of Excellence for Marine Resilience and Sustainable Development. During his career, Professor Jamaluddin Jompa has served in several strategic positions such as the Director of Research and Development Center for Marine, Coastal and Small Islands of Hasanuddin University, and the Chairman of Scientific Advisory Group for National Coordinating Committee of the CDI, or Coral Triangle Initiative. Professor Jamaluddin Jompa, please welcome. Let's provide the floor to you, Professor JJ. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me directly share my screen, and in the meanwhile, I would like to thank again Prof. Kathleen and Byrne and Tari for being with us today. I'm actually trying to be efficient in my time, so I will just do maybe some of them. I will make it very quickly. So my presentation is trying to think about or discussing how this marine biodiversity actually contribute to better livelihood of small islands. In this picture, you can see, especially on one of the islands in the right-hand side here, Pulau Barang Lompo, which is one of our marine stations. You can imagine that small islands full with houses, and also almost no more lands available, only houses. In this situation, you can imagine how can the resources around the islands can support the people. These small islands, actually about 5,000 people live there. So beforehand, let me remind it from Kathleen, if you are still there. We were in Makassar last year discussing about the future of Eastern Indonesia small islands. And this is Indonesia boats of special boats from South Sulawesi. And I think this is a very good momentum at the time when we really need to do something for small island in East Indonesia, where not only we talk about the islands, but also the people of the islands. So let me go a little bit on detail on the dilemma that we face so far for small islands, especially when we talk about livelihood. In one hand, actually, fisheries and natural resources are very rich, especially those in the more eastern Indonesia. But at the same time, fishing fleets are actually dominated on, by small and very small boats, many of them even actually unmotorized. The quality of catch also not very good because of the problem of the cold chain facility. We have also issue on fish processing, which is still very traditional due to there is no electricity and mostly very small scale. And in other words, resources of income for livelihood is not very much, it's quite limited. At the same time, many of these small islands also are very beautiful and very attractive. The coral reef and surrounding area is so nice, and you can say this is one of the best maybe tourist destinations in the world. But likewise, the problem are there. The basic infrastructure is limited, and also the people are facing challenge for education because now not many high schools, and health facility also limited. Transportation accessibility also very limited, and many of these actually still too much people live in one island, so very dense populated. So the global development and also at the same time climate change actually will continue to affect this small island condition. So I'll move a little bit to the biodiversity because we're supposed to actually transfer this biodiversity into economy. This is always the challenge for any project, including CORMAP that I would like to mention a little bit because my colleague here from the World Bank is also maybe discussing about the ocean blue. And I think this is something that we need to really think about how to transfer this biodiversity, the rich biodiversity to the people. Again, in terms of economy, all of this biodiversity, if we count together, actually is a huge amount, huge potential, including maybe pharmaceutical potential that we are facing now, that we have a problem for COVID, for example. But at the same time, if you check the poverty situation, all of this, most of this is Indonesia actually in the red color, which is actually in the lower, on the lowest income. So there is overlapping of higher or richer biodiversity and also poor community, which is, I think this is the dilemma when we talk about how to improve the livelihood of the small islands in Eastern Indonesia. We actually need to acknowledge or maybe confess that we fail to to do something for the small island society, because they are actually poorer compared to other people, of course, in the city, especially in the Western Indonesia. But at the same time, actually, they are the place of the most richest biodiversity on this planet. So we also need to understand that the small island peoples are not really staying in one island all the time. They are actually traveling all over Indonesia. So we need to think about this, how to empower them to be able to really improve their income, especially the people of the islands, to make sure that they have a good saving system, they have an entrepreneurship system. Otherwise, they go around all of Indonesia, but then when they return, they bring money, but then they don't have any skills in managing their property. So talking about activity in small islands, there is no much actual opportunity to improve capture fisheries. As you can see, this is the most recent report from the FAO. They actually all over the world, the fisheries, capture fisheries especially, is not going to be promising for the future, especially for the coastal fisheries. We only rely on improving the production through aquaculture. So I think we need to think about this dilemma quite seriously, because fishing around small islands is still taking place. And when the fish population is limited, the growing people become more and more. I think we are facing what we call the tragedy of the common that we discussed very long time ago. So this is the data for Indonesian status for fisheries. You can see that most of this is actually on the fisheries management area in the red color. But at the same time, we still have a lot of potential for high value reef fish, for example, groupers. But we need to have something what we call management, strategic management, because these ones need size limitation to be able to make it sustainable. They are not very well managed at the moment, and many of them actually in vulnerable situation based on the reports. And we also have high value of what you call ornamental fish, but this need a lot of management effort to be able to make it sustainable in the around small islands. And at the same time, we also have a lot of actually potential of marine organisms. For example, Fisheries that not managed at all in the past, and this is very cheap. You can see this, the old lady selling this what you call Gorgonian bamboo or Fisheries is very cheap, only 1,500 per kilogram, which is actually supposed to be a lot more expensive. If you can make it more innovative in developing it. Likewise, for coral reefs, coral export that we banned in the past, I think we need to open this as a potential for high value business for small islands. As long as we do it with science, I think we can make it sustainable still. So I don't have time to go with the core map, but this is one example when core map 2 and 1 and 2 actually reach out about 500 small islands all over Indonesia, especially in East Indonesia, and we actually were able to prove that we can improve the quality of coral reef in the same time, so we lower the incidence of poverty in all of these small islands. I will go very quickly because of the limited time, but one of the activities that CORMAP did in the past was actually to develop this what we call no-take area. So eventually we can develop what we call right-based fisheries, but to be able to implement right-based fisheries, we need to have also design how to make it effective, especially in the context of Indonesian law. We have analysis in the past, we have model actually we can improve, we can develop, and we can empower the small islands community to make a group. In the past, we call it LPSTK, Lembaga Pengelola Sumber Daya Terumbu, whatever we call it. But I think this small island society, we need to train them to be able to manage the resources, because otherwise we cannot make it open access any longer. This is just an example of a best practice of using a marine protected area as a tools. So almost my last slide, for livelihood for small islands, we have many options at the moment. We still have many options, including sustainable fisheries. We need to improve their fishing fleets to bigger to be able for them to go offshore. And we need to develop these right-based fisheries around the reefs. Maybe this is we can discuss with the World Bank or ADB or GEF to be able to continue what we have done in the past. Maybe through CAIPSDCC, we can also develop this together. And sustainable, environmental friendly aquaculture also is quite good potential for people and the island, especially for those densely populated islands. Fish processing unit, we need this, especially in this COVID situation when we still have problem, for example, in logistic issue, in bringing this to product to mainland. So a lot of products actually in the small islands become decayed because there is no processing unit. So we need to also develop this. And the last but not least, actually, community-based tourism also are quite potential. Maybe after the pandemic finish, we can develop this together. And to be able to make them more entrepreneurs, I think the fisher cooperative need to be also developed again. Just for your information, I think we discussed this in many meetings before, that the new regulation of ministers, number 12/2020, we have a lot of potential for groupers, for lobsters and mud crabs, and also blue swimming crabs. I have these models here, but I'm running out of time. So the question is, my first question was in this first slide: can rich marine biodiversity contribute to better livelihood? Our answer is yes, but we need to do at least 6 things. First, we need to improve education and skills, especially for those small islands people, to be able to understand the situation and maybe make a good strategy for their business. Develop and adopt better technology so that they can use high technology or better technology or current technology to be able to adapt with the situation now. Improve fishing strategy, including right-based fisheries. Improve facility, especially for entrepreneurship, strengthening BUMDES, which is local or desa or village-based corporate, and also provide facility, especially for basic infrastructure. We need to improve electricity, water, health support, IT, jetty, harbor transportation, so on for small island. And the last but not least, we need to link these small islands as a part of national, provincial, or district developmental strategies, so we don't let that behind. So I think that's all my presentation. We need to make these small islands people happy because they are part of our people. Thank you very much, and mohon maaf agak panjang sedikit dari waktu yang diberikan. Thank you so much. I get you back to you, Aga.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor JJ. It was really wonderful. So sorry about the short time. So yeah, I have actually lots of questions, but you're short in time. Lots of things that struck out to me, like the paradox in the rich biodiversity islands, the tragedy of the commons, and the coral farming as well. It's a very interesting and a very critical area that took my attention for a while. So let's move on to the next speaker, and thank you so much for the presentation as well, Professor JJ. Thank you for your time as well. So let's move on to the next speaker. The third one is Bapak Ahmad Baihaqi. Pak Ahmad Baihaqi, Master of Science, joined the World Bank in late 2019 as the Senior Oceans Consultant. He leads the Coastal Communities Livelihood and Coastal Fisheries initiatives within the bank's collaboration with the government of Indonesia. He also leads the private sector engagement in the marine and fishery sector. Prior to joining the bank, Pak Aki led Global Fishing Watch in Indonesia, a technology NGO that fights for data transparency against illegal, unreported, and undocumented fishing. He spent most of his career time in Europe working for the European Commission. Pak Aki has a bachelor's degree from the National University of Singapore and went to Leiden University for his master's. So, Pak Aki, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Aga. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen.
Yep.
So first of all, I would like to thank the opportunity to be here, sitting next to very distinguished speakers. I'm also grateful that I'm speaking after Ibu Tari and Professor Jompa. So some of the stuff I'm going to present will be elaborating pretty much similar to what the previous speakers have been talking about. I'm going to talk about the World Bank's current preparation for a project with the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. We call this project Ocean for Prosperity, or in Bahasa Indonesia, Lautan Sejahtera. We shorten it to Lautra. And how this could be a very good point of discussion today as well. So Lautra has the objective to improve the fisheries management and coastal ecosystem management. And when we talk about these two things, we can't exclude the important parts of the ecosystem, which is the human part. So we're also going to do the improvement of livelihoods of the target coastal communities. Now, Lautra has four components with three main ones. The first one is on sustainable fisheries, like Professor Jompa has elaborated nicely in his presentation. Component one is talking about the WPP, or fishery management areas strengthening. And I will talk about boosting the seafood value by facilitating market access for the main commodities in Indonesia. And the second component, which is the one I am leading, and probably very relevant to today's discussion, is on improving the livelihoods of the coastal community. How are we going to do this? We have the activities of supporting or promoting the alternative livelihoods for people in the coastal areas. We want to support them with the creation of local micro, small, and medium enterprises. And we want to increase their employability so they can work beyond their current profession as well. And we're also going to do piloting conditional cash transfers. So all these improving livelihoods is surrounding is basically giving sort of a mitigation how the coastal communities can still continue their livelihoods when there's unfavorable conditions like bad seasons or the closure of the fishing areas due to ecosystem management measures. So the third component, which is covering all about coastal and marine ecosystem resilience, we're going to do marine spatial planning, extremely important, as Professor Jompa as well mentioned today, and as well managing the critical ecosystems. We're also going to do the management of MPAs and community-based fisheries management, like the turf that Professor Jompa also mentioned. And then, last but not least, is the marine debris and the sea cleanup component. Component number 4 is about national management coordination, and also touching on the blue finance. So the next one, this is a diagram of the interrelation and integration of the three components, the three main components of Lautra that I've explained earlier. So we are taking the ecosystem approach to fisheries management, as you can see in the center here. And then the component 1 on resilient fish stocks, 2 on communities, and the third one on the ecosystem. And of course, each of the component has interaction and outcomes that touch on each other. And also, like the previous presentation mentioned, that there's the ecological health, like when we do the connection between component 2 and 3, the outcome is a sustainable ecosystem services that basically pays for the people. And also with the resilient fish stock and resilient communities, we will have a profitable as well as sustainable livelihood and the environment and the fish supply. So this is the interaction of the three components. Now, the locations that we plan to do in Indonesia are initially we're going to do in the 3 WPP, 714, 715, 718, plus Savu Sea or Laut Sawu. And these are been agreed with the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. So the component objectives of the livelihood, or component 2 in Lautra, is number 1, to diversify sources of livelihoods and increase the employability of the people. So the main reason is that we are in the livelihood design, we are trying to help them improve their livelihood. And secondly, we also somehow try to reduce the stress of the ocean by trying to make them perhaps finding an additional livelihood. Or like employability means they could probably gain more skills in doing something else. And second objective is to increase the value addition of their products of the capture fisheries. That's the link to component 1, sustainable fisheries. The third one is to mitigate. This is the one I explained earlier. We're going to try to mitigate their temporary or long-term economic loss of livelihoods caused by the implementation of fisheries management or bad seasons and unfavorable measures, situations. And lastly, we want to increase their adherence to fisheries management plans through the incentives. Now, we're not going to start from zero. KKP or the MMIF already have existing and upcoming programs, like the one that Ibu Tari mentioned just now. There's Desa Wisata Bahari, there's the Kampung Nelayan Maju, there is the seaweed communities. So what we're trying to do is that Lautra will support these existing and upcoming programs in the coastal communities, and we're going to strengthen this one. So we're not going to start from zero or reinventing the wheel. Next, this is just a brief development concept. I'm going to go through very quickly. So we're going to find potential coastal village that will fit in our criteria for development. And then we're going to help them with, first with the planning in the village. It's a very community-based involvement. So there's a participation in the village. First, we're going to assist them in the creation of village spatial planning. We identify their natural resources, their issues, their aspirations, and try to sync that with other programs in the village, let's say from the Ministry of Village Development or Agriculture, for example. And then once that passed, we're going to help them with assistance, whereas we're going to strengthen the community-based organizations, support them in forming the MSMEs, giving them the capacity buildings needed to help them doing the daily life and running the business. And then after the assistance, we're also going to help them with the basic infrastructure like ice making facilities, processing units, road access, a jetty that will help them with logistics and access to other islands. And then lastly, to ensure that there is continuity and sustainability of the activities in the communities, we have to ensure that these activities will last beyond the life of the Lautra program. So we have to try to connect the communities with access to finance, access to markets, access to supply chain, and partners that will help them with continued training and support in the long run. And then finally, we hope that it will result in resilient community. Now, as my last slide, instead of, perhaps this is just some ideas that we can trigger for the discussion today. I would like to trigger and to learn more from our distinguished speakers about how can academia help us in working with the small islands and coastal communities. These are some of the questions to trigger. I've already have one question in the poll, and I hope the audience and participants can participate and answer the questions. It'll be very helpful. So this is an example. What are the gaps where university can fill in? For example, can you do more research on how to improve seaweed production? Or how do you ensure gender balance in this intervention? Perhaps we can have some of these discussions later on. That's all for me now. I welcome your questions on the Q&A and later in the discussion. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bapak Aki. Yeah, so some really wonderful points, especially the role of university and filling the gaps in research, small islands research. I think that's very important. You also highlighted the fact that seaweed research is also important. One of my colleagues happens to be active in that particular field as well, and I think that's sometimes an overlooked field of research as well, even though it's actually really important. And thank you so much for your time and presentation as well, Pak Haki. And also, I would like to apologize for the mix-up today. It's supposed to be Professor Tapan Sarker first, then Pak Aki. But thank you for taking it in stride. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the next speaker, to the last speaker actually, Associate Professor Tapan Sarker. Dr. Tapan Sarker is an Associate Professor of Sustainability in the Department of Business Strategy and Innovation and Research Chair of Griffith Center for Sustainable Enterprise based at Griffith University in Australia. He holds a PhD in Commerce from the Australian National University, Australia, an MA in Commerce with distinction from KU University, Japan, and a first-class honors in Forestry and Environmental Sciences from Chittagong University in Bangladesh. Dr. Sarker is a former World Bank scholar. He has several visiting professorships in prestigious universities around the world, including Soka University in 2019. And Dr. Sarker's main research interests include international political economy, or IPE, of public sector resources, business strategy for sustainability, CSR and governance, business ethics, and public sector management. His most recent book publications are Pathways to a Sustainable Economy, Bridging the Gap Between Paris Climate Change Commitments and Net Zero Emissions, from Springer 2017. So, Professor Tapan, please welcome, and I provide the floor to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I like to share my screen. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I hope that you can, all of you can see the screen. Is that right?
Yep, we can see the screen.
Okay, thank you very much. And a warm welcome to all of you from everywhere in the world, wherever you are watching this. And I really want to thank the organizer for inviting me on this very important session today. So I am a political economist, having studied forestry in the beginning of my academic life and career. And my projects in Indonesia has a particular focus on integrating businesses in sort of emission reductions as well as ecosystem services. So I will just tell my story that particularly what is ecosystem services valuation in the small island context, and the recent literature and evidences and examples. At the same time, the role of the corporate sector in supporting a sustainable economy. So my agenda is this. I first want to focus on the ecosystem services and its role in small island context. I like to also explain a bit on the theory because whatever we have discussed, there is a theoretical underpinning of sustainability and intergenerational justice and intergenerational equity that actually drives us that why do you do so? Following this, we want to talk on the role of the business sector. Businesses are one of the key stakeholders. Without their involvement, active involvement in this process, it is very difficult to achieve this goal of really conserving the ecosystem. Finally, bridging the natural and cultural values, that is very important to bridge between the two, as well as the role of the corporation in the small island community. So let's proceed on that. As far as the literature we can find, it is there have been a growing interest on this, especially the role of economic value and natural ecosystem. And as I have cited a few of them, as you will see, mainly they are focusing on how they contribute to the quality of life. So the quality of life is important and human well-being is important, particularly in the small island community. Small island community, they face a lot of other problems, including those like the sea level rise, issues such as natural disasters, and so on. But more importantly, there is a finance problem as well, that they face serious shortage of finance when they're coming in really to finance many of the projects they want to. So when I was looking at this issue, basically there are both use values and non-use values that should combine the economic value. So more often we see what is the use value, but there are some intangible values that are there, hidden values, and which is very important to really assessing the net economic value of biodiversity and ecosystem services. So what we also can see that recent years, there have been a call for the both government, communities, natural resources managers, so a bit of more collaborative governance or collaborative thinking. And that's something that somebody, Mr. Ahmed, was asking the triggering question. I think this is a starting point, that partnership. And this is a partnership that is very, very important to really bring into a broader ecosystem approach, as well as this approach to making decisions. Remember, our decisions, although taken by top-level government brokers, there is, and I believe there are many who are listening today, it is important to incorporate communities, managers, NGOs, and other third sectors into this process and make a decision while making that for natural resources management as well as for planning. So while I have said this, it is really important to say that it is not easy to measure and assess the valuation for ecological, social, economic, and cultural context. Particularly, it is, as you can see, a particular reference I have given here that is not really easy and straightforward. So coming from the global context, I like to now focus on the Indonesia in particular, a country I love most, and I travel a lot. Unfortunately, I couldn't travel on a recent time because of this COVID. I hope that I can travel again. It's a big country, like as Kathleen was just telling us, 17,000 islands, 6,000 of them have communities. Can you imagine? There is no better country or no better example than Indonesia to talk about these small island developing states when you're talking about the ecosystem services and the diversity that it brings. So among this, whatever we have seen, that the three key areas like coral reefs, mangroves, and seagrass, the literature I have looked at, I have found that in many different contexts, like in that economic valuation of coral reefs, particularly, that is seeing very promising compared to mangrove and seagrass. So that's the literature is saying, because where there is more promising approach to demonstrate the benefits of sustainable management of coral ecosystem. So that's one of the key evidence and literature that we can find. Now, I really want to shed some light on the key theoretical underpinning that why do we need to care about these small island states? And this is a particular framework that was given by me initially in 2013, but that triggered a book, which is in my right-hand side, where some of our colleagues, we really sort of given a theory in a way that it is important to achieve long-term economic growth rather than short-term gain. And this is a very important message I really want to pass on to everybody here, who I'm sure there are some policymakers, but let's look at more long-term growth. And particularly when you look at the economic growth in particular, and let's look at what is going to be the benefit for the future generations. So in my circle left-hand side, as you see the sustainable development, and at the bottom where you really need to maintain or enhance your capital. And in this case, nature reserves, forests, as well as all of these are basically your natural capital, and that needs to be maintained or enhanced. In the left-hand side circle, as you will see that we really need finance to really take this forward. To finance is needed every stages to make things happen, both all of the resources to glue together. In the right-hand side, that's intergenerational equity. That means that let us make a decision today that is also good for the future, and I'm talking about long-term as well. So as I said, my projects in Indonesia looked at many of those issues, but mostly in the forestry perspective, as well as in the REDD+ perspectives through Australian government's funds in the recent time, and some of them have been published recent time. So I particularly looked at the finance that's coming through using the fiscal instruments, and I like to shed some light on this. From here, what could be the private sector engagement? We know that there is always a tension between the public sector, means the government, and private sector. But ideally, we really want to see that they both work together and both work together to achieve a particular goal, a common goal, right? Which is how we can achieve and better outcome in terms of biodiversity conservation, emission reductions, and so on. So my literature, as I have showed here, clearly indicating that private sector's participation is important, and it is more important in island states. Whatever we have seen the literature in case of in Australia, as you will see Sharon and colleagues, is saying the partnerships between natural area managers, particularly in tourism industry, and I know, we all know that Indonesia, how much they rely on tourism, particularly in the island places, many of those that have suggested to contribute sustainability in protected areas highly. And
Prof.
the bottom is...
Prof. Tapan, I'm sorry, you have 1 minute left.
Okay, so very quickly because of the time. So I'm just trying to see that private sector engagement is also welcome by the Paris Agreement. And also it says that in case of business involved in carbon related activities, there is a role for the businesses in terms of carbon sequestration and stocking as well. And our results of our own study also supports this. So I think I'm in my last couple of slides now. So bridging the natural and cultural values are very, very important. And there are literature that is looking at partnerships and that has positive impact. So I will again tell that Mr. Ahmed that this is the approach that which is very important in maintaining as well as protecting marine and terrestrial ecosystems. So this is the last slide. So where we stand and where we go, right? It is important that ecosystem valuation is important as well as, but what we can see is that we really need to develop these tools further. That's one of the key outcome of the sort of research that I have done. We really need a multidisciplinary input. So various groups should come together to provide input as well as making the decision. Partnerships and dialogues involving business can generate opportunities for peer-to-peer learning, and that is very important. And finally, sharing information. So this is a great opportunity to share information to everybody in the world that how Indonesia is doing and tackling this particular issue. So thank you once again. There is some references which will go to all of you eventually, I believe, through the organizer. And once again, I thank you, and I like to be part of this Q&A at some point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Tapan. Yeah, so apologies for the mix-up as well. I would like to comment on a few things. So I've noticed that in my discipline, there are a few ecosystems that are actually still overlooked in terms of ecosystem services, like marine lakes and maybe small island ecosystem, and the terrestrial one especially. I would love to ask more questions in the future to you, Professor Tapan, if you don't mind. So sure. Regarding that issue. And now, for now, let's move on to the reviewer. Hang on. And thank you very much as well for your time and presentation, Professor Tapan. And let's see. Sorry. Yeah. So let's introduce our reviewer for today. It's Dr. Edna Witulai. Dr. Ernel Witular is the former UN Special Ambassador for MDGs in the Asia Pacific from 2003 and 2007, Indonesian Minister of Human Settlements and Regional Development from 1999 to 2001. President of the Consumers International from 1991 to 1997, founder and leader of several CSOs, among others, the Indonesian Environmental Forum, such as WALHI, Indonesian Consumers Foundation, YLKI, Partnership for Governance Reform in Indonesia, Philanthropy Indonesia, Asia Pacific Water Forum, and the Indonesia Biodiversity Foundation, KAHAPI. In 2017, she co-founded the CAIPSDCC, and in 2018, she co-founded a startup company, Partnership ID, that facilitates sustainable partnerships and collaborative engagements. A chemical engineer from ITB in 1974, she completed her postgraduate study in human ecology from UI in 1993 and was awarded as Doctor of the University at Griffith University, Brisbane in 2019. Thank you. The floor is yours, Dr. Ernel Witular.
Thank you, Aga. I hope you don't cut my time from the time you used to read my CV, which is so long.
So good.
Okay. Anyway, hello everybody. We have been having 3 previous webinars, and we gained a rich knowledge there. Yeah, especially on small islands ecosystem, their threats and vulnerability to disaster, both climate and non-climate. Yeah, and not to mention the COVID-19. So we were also reminded that the human beings, as the beneficiary of ecosystem services, should take an active role in protecting the environment. And to achieve such goals, collaborations and partnerships are necessary. So today, the tones are more positive, more optimistic, yeah, and opening up so many opportunities for the livelihood of small islands communities. So many innovations and creativity have come up in livelihood programs and projects for small islands inhabitants. The options and variety are so abundant. Also, the opportunities for collaborations and partnerships seems to be limitless. Let me start with Ibu Tari. She explained the government program and policy and on the development of sustainable economy and livelihood on small islands with inhabitants. They are doing so much from aquaculture, specific agriculture, because the land in small islands are so small. So, and also silver fisheries under the mangroves, combining fisheries and mangroves, ecotourism, etc. Also, how small islanders are supported to get their products to the market. Most interesting is how the ministry managed to mobilize 10 line ministries to contribute to the support of the small islands development. This multi-sector collaboration was something I have been dreaming of for decades in Indonesia, and I had difficulties in doing so when I was in the government. Next is Prof. JJ, my fellow South Sulawesi brother. I have to say that, yeah. And he was explaining how the small island fishermen are also involved in the fisheries business, can be involved in the fisheries business as well as pharmaceutical, cosmetics, and all this sustainable fish farming. They can become the alternative solutions of their livelihood. And JJ it reminds me of a culture which maybe sometimes you can mention that of Sasi in the archipelago of Maluku and also Raja Ampat, where the sea were left untouched for some time so that the population of fish will return. Yeah, and now God is also putting a Sasi on us through the COVID-16. Do you agree on this? So your point on ecotourism is also very interesting, as well as also by other speakers, because ecotourism is one very sustainable development. We call it SDGs banget, yeah, where the aspects of economy, social, and environment are really put together. Tapan, how are you? I like your explanation on the potential of ecosystem services, yeah, the valuation and payment for ecosystem services of mangroves, seagrass, and coral reefs. I know that it has been more developed on land-based, but I'm glad that you and your colleagues have started to get attention to valuation of coral reefs in this system. And you also talk about corporate engagement, which is a very important way. Last but not least is Aki, who shared the World Bank and Indonesian government program of sustainable economy. Yeah. What is interesting in his presentation is how he can develop a holistic approach, yeah, for resilient communities, resilient ecosystem, and resilient fisheries. And from there comes a plethora of community-based programs ranging from fish farming, salt production, ecotourism, etc., etc. And for me, it is very, I'm most happy to see how partnerships are already working in practice in all the presentation. Yeah. From multi-sector, yeah, clearly seen in Pak Gigi's and Bu and Tafan's presentation, yeah, how what the private sector should very much be included there. And then the multi-sectoral partnership, which Ibu Tari was showing on how she can generate the interest and attention of these line agencies, and also cross-regional collaboration, which is strong in Aki's presentation, especially since your project is covering so wide sea of the Moluccas, of the West Papua, as well as NTT. So congratulations to all of you. You are inspiring us to move forward on this issue. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the review, Ibu Dr. Erna Witular. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm starting my video now. Okay. So, yeah, it's a pleasure to have all of you in this session today. I think we're going to begin the Q&A session quite shortly. And now let's pick up some of the most beautiful questions that we have currently. Okay, so the first one is going to be for Ibu Tari, Dr. Lestari. Let me read some of the questions. And for some of you who wishes to answer the questions yourself by typing, please feel free to do so. Yeah, so the question is, environmental deteriorations bring uncertainty for poor people in remote or small islands. Participation of community in shaping sustainable environmental concerns is urgently needed. Local people still depend on natural resources for living. How we can interact our concerns of local economy and poverty to help reduce the income gap and build resilience in remote or small islands. This is from Dr. Phil Arina Frill, biogeographer, Sriwijaya University, and Truong Dai Hoc Nong Lam Thai Nguyen, Vietnam. Sorry if I mispronounced the name. I did my best. So yeah, Ibu Tari, Dr. Lestari, please feel free to answer the question as well.
Thank you very much, Mas Aga ya.
Yeah.
Dr. Aril Naril from Unsri, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the question. Actually, it's a tricky question because for managing the small island, we have to equally manage economy and also ecology. Because for the characteristic of small island, it's very resilient or very fragile, vulnerable because of the nature, because of the human being, and etc. Actually, the Ministry of Marine Affairs of Fisheries (KKP) or MAF already built many fisheries and marine and fisheries centers. Actually, we call it SKPT, Sentra Kelautan Perikanan Terpadu. We have 13 locations. There is in pesisir or the coastal and also in small island. What we may do is we give them the education, or we call it the capacity building. We try to identify what the local or specific location have specific economic that can be sell to the industry or to the local people. So if you ask about how to make it the gap become decreased from the economy of the poverty of the local island people, actually we have to make them another activity or other potential economic income, not only from the fisheries, not only from the marine, but also from the other source. That's why we have to also optimize the land of the island, the land part of the island, not only the ocean, not only the waters. So as our program, we may also introduce the agro-marine fishery ecotourism, meaning that in the small island with its potential, its characteristics of land, it also can be used for agriculture, can be used. That's very limited. I guess not a big agriculture, but very limited. As you know, I mentioned it, the dragon fruit, for example, the breadfruit, for example, can be also planted in small island. Even the chili, if planted in the small island, the hottest is more than 10 times that chili planted and the natural land. So I suggest that if we maintain our ecology system, we also want to increase our economy. So we have to optimize all the potential of the island, not only of the water, but also for the island itself, or the terrestrial parts. Thank you, Ms. Aga. That's what I can remarks from the question from Arina Fril.
Yeah, thank you so much for the answer, Ibu Tari. Wonderful answer. Yeah, so let's move on to the next question. There are actually a whole bunch for Professor JJ, but they've already been answered. Professor JJ, are you still available for us today?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so would you like to elaborate some of these questions to the audience as well? I know you've already answered, but in case, you know, it's an interesting topic discussion as well. So we have quite a lot actually for you. Yeah, this is about the tragedy of the common. Yeah, so the problem of the tragedy of the commons is still a dilemma for people on a small island. According to Professor, can this, hang on. Oh, it shifted, sorry, okay. According to the Professor, can this be solved one way, namely strengthening community institutions, such as building agreements or rules? Thank you.
Yes, Thanks, Arga.
Thank
It's
you.
a very good question, but not very easy to answer, of course. Tragedy of the common has been around for so long, has been published in many different papers, and some places were able to resolve problems at the local scale, especially to develop what we call community level or lower level right-based fisheries. So like in Japan, I think they do it quite well to be able to give the right for the people to manage the area together. So they have the exclusive right, but also at the same time, they have responsibility to manage the area. I think in the Indonesian case, as Ibu Erna mentioned, sometimes not very, it's not exactly the same right-based fisheries, but traditionally they work together to be able to manage the area for sustainability. The really tricky there is data. The really tricky there is how to do best optimum fisheries, and at the same time actually give the benefit for the fishermen equally, especially for equal access. So they are not competing each other to the level that depleting the population of fisheries, because everybody say this is belongs to everybody. No? So this is something that I think not only that we strengthen the community institutional capacity, but also we need to be able to engage them with larger community or organization to be able to reduce the potential conflict, especially in the context of what we call autonomy daerah or district autonomy in Indonesia. Sometimes they have the feeling that they have the right, but at the same time, Indonesian law also make a kind of right for the traditional fisheries to go all over Indonesian waters. So I think this is something that we need to work together, not only the institutional coastal community, but also the government institution need to work together to be able to make this potential tragedy of the common can be minimized.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor JJ. Yeah, it's a very complex situation, I think, regarding the spatial arrangements as well. And it kind of reminds me of the niche partitioning in ecology for some reason. Yeah, in regards to the spatial partitioning between fishers, especially. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. This one's for Professor Tapan. Okay, this is from Umi Zakia, MSI, Indonesia. Dear Professor Tapan, regarding sustainability means the continuity of economic activity in small islands, I do think this activity are still very vulnerable without any interference from either stakeholder or government. So from your point of view, how can we strengthen it, or would the people in small island had a chance to be independent in their economic sustainability? Thank you.
I think it's a very interesting and important question. We definitely have to find a way out of this particular problem by thinking that we need more decentralization as opposed to the centralized system currently we have, and giving back that decision-making power to those people living in that island, for instance. That's the first thing. Awareness and information sharing is the second important way to really make things better from here. And finally, very briefly, is a model which we find is a more collaborative governance model, which is very important more important for island states in particular.
I see. Yeah. I think from this question, yeah, in regards to scarcity, would you believe that this is actually my personal question? Would you believe that scarcity is actually the most important limiting factor in small islands? Is that the only element, or is there anything else?
This is one of the elements. There are various examples globally if we think to generate revenues to generate revenues by utilizing or better utilizing, rather say, the natural resources and ecosystem services, and that resources can really help manage those ecosystem. So it is how better you plan to get that incentives for using that ecosystem services and bringing it back to maintain, improve that ecosystem again. So it's a bit of cyclical process which needs to really plan very well. So you can utilize the resources, but then again, you need to bring it back to maintain and improve further of your ecosystem.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. Thank you so much for your wonderful explanation as well. Yeah. And yeah, I think for the last question, I think, or not the last question, the last question this round, for Pak Aki, hang on, let's look for, yep. Yeah, I think lots of the questions have already been answered by Pak Aki, but would you be willing to elaborate some of these questions live? I think that would be wonderful. So yeah, this one, how about the programs for the sea that have been contaminated with waste to protect the biodiversity that lives there, but also supports the economy there? Yeah, I think that's a good one. But it doesn't mention who was the questioner. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Masaka, can you repeat the question? I was just answering some questions, so I
okay.
pay attention. So you said yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you've already answered this question actually, but it would be lovely if you can hear your answer live. So, how about programs for the sea that have been contaminated with waste to protect the biodiversity that lives there, but also supports the economy there?
Yeah, so I typed that answer already. Basically, that's an important aspect in sites. It would potentially be part of the component 3, which is the ecosystem management. And I'm sure my colleague who are leading the component will also probably consider that. But just at the information and baseline, so the Lautra is still within the preparation stage at the moment, at least this year. We're working with KKP. We are conducting several studies, because there's some questions about climate change role in this project. So we are conducting several studies. Example, climate change impact on the oceans. We're doing some study on the bioeconomic value of Eastern Indonesia. Fisheries. We're also conducting study on the livelihood, where we are going to find, for example, selection criteria for the villages and how the gender mainstreaming can be, be part of the prominent part of the Lautra project. So, yeah, the answer is definitely the contaminated areas and other parts where it is going to be located within the areas of Lautra, which is the 3 WPP and Laut Sabu. I'm sure they will be part of the considerations of what mitigation needs to be taken. Thank you, Mas Aga.
Oh, thank you so much for the answer. Yeah. So we actually still have about 10 more minutes or less. We still have lots more questions. I think we'll pass some of the highlighted questions here. There's one that doesn't say the speaker, the intended speaker. I think this can be answered by anyone. From Angel Nisia Manembu, during this pandemic, there are increases of domestic violence to women and children, especially in Indonesia. Small islands might suffer since in many cases there are no legal institutions to deal with these matters. Would anyone be willing to comment on this critical issue? Anyone? Maybe.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aga. Yes,
yeah.
I'm interested in answering this question because the pandemic is now facing us. We are now facing the pandemic or Corona COVID-19. With the pandemic, actually, the people in small islands is lesser impacted than in the big island, especially in the city due to the openness environment, which is surrounded by the sea. That is why.
Yep.
Excuse me, may I repeat my answer?
Yeah, please feel free. Yeah.
Hello, Mas Aga.
Hello. Yeah.
Sorry.
We can hear
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
I'm interested in answering the question. Okay.
Yep.
I'm interested in the answering the question because the pandemic corona is very important for the small islands. As we may know, that small island is open areas. There is no pollution, far from every location, but it's can make some resources that is very good for our immune. For example, if somebody go to the island and have refresh, happy, and they can fishing there, or they can snorkeling or even diving there, they can have more healthy and also more refreshed, of course, more immune. So the era pandemic or the COVID-19, we MAF also urgently strong to the community, even local community or the central community, go to the island to have more refresh air, also refresh food, because fish, as you may know, is very high content of protein, content of nutrition, etc. So for the era pandemic, I think small island is one of the destination of marine ecotourism. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for the answer. Yeah. Yeah. So there are lots of more interesting questions. Hang on. Okay. So there's an interesting question for Professor Tapan. Okay. Hang on. Let me look for it. These questions shift all over.
Gak ada yang mau jawab, kenapa ya? Gak ada yang bisa. Saya tanya Yus.
Yep. Okay, so lots of the questions have already been answered. So that's why I couldn't see it in my. Okay, so there are some questions for all panelists again. Okay, how do you anticipate the impacts of introducing new livelihoods, alternative livelihoods, additional livelihoods toward the existing livelihoods in small islands, especially in their marine resources? This is from Muhammad Korebima, I think. And the second question is, most small islands in eastern Indonesia influenced by weather or season. How do you see this as the obstacle to introduce new livelihoods, especially regarding the market access? Okay, is anybody willing to answer these two questions? They're actually three, but we're short in time.
So
yep, Professor Tup.
Thank you for these very interesting questions. I think we all want to know the answers as well. The answers are not quite straightforward, Mr. Muhammad Korebima. But the first question is that how we anticipate that impact of introducing new livelihood and alternative livelihood. Frankly speaking, as we have seen, we really need to have alternative livelihood options for those people, because they are quite vulnerable to their income, especially if their income is for a particular source of income and that are impacted by any weather event, as you have rightly said in your question number 2. So this is a very important aspect. I think there is a need of additional alternative sources for them. And in this case, there is a need for more partnership and a buffer, like how in a time of difficulty, those people will be cared and will be helped. Obviously, not only the government, but businesses and other agencies should come forward, including non-government sectors, to really work together to find different and alternative options for them during this time, which is affected by, for instance, the natural calamities.
Oh, thank you so much, Professor Tapan. So there's actually the third question. Would you still be willing to answer the third one? We still have a bit more time, 3 minutes, about 3 minutes. Hello, Professor Tapan?
This is a very difficult one for me.
Okay.
On the cultural cultural one, because as I have not visited so many of the islands, obviously, like many of you, but I have seen in the Pacific Island, which is not too far from Australia, so visiting, for instance, Fiji, visiting Papua New Guinea, and I can imagine that people over there have a particular cultural and aspect of the way they have their lifestyle. So it is a very tricky one, but I think that if all of us, just my very general comment is that if all of us can have a common thinking of more sustainable way of thinking, that is the first thing to understand and include the way that our habit and the culture is very important thing, but it is important that how we can preserve many of the things that we have in the small islands, but it is a very tricky question for sure.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. It is a very tricky one. It's regarding cultural and the habits of people in small islands to exploitation potentials. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for the answer. Okay, so we still have one more minute. Yeah, I think we can pretty much end the questions and answer session and begin with the takeaway messages from each speaker. I think we will invite Ibu Tari, Dr. Pamuji Lestari first, to provide us with the takeaway message. Thank you. And then we can move on to the next speaker as well. Yeah. Hello? Dr.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We come up with the end of this webinar. It's very useful, very thankful for me, and also for the discussion. It's very spectacular. The speaker is very good, very nice. We have learned each other. And my takeaway message, three of them. First is small island in Indonesia is a big issue. So it is important for government to make sure that all policies is implemented well in the future. The second, the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries need continuous support from all stakeholders, central and local government, private company, university, and also community and media. The third one, my take-home message or takeaway message is that a sustainable small island livelihoods and local economy require resilience and mitigation ecosystem in the face of ever-increasing anthropogenic pressure and climate crisis as such. It calls for integrated small island ecosystem based for management policy and local levels. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ibu Tari. Yeah, for the next takeaway message will be from Professor JJ. Please provide us with the takeaway message. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Arga. Small island is our national asset. Not many of us might be going to our small islands quite often. And please don't try to plan to go one island every day because you need 40 years in your life. But my nose there is the UNCLOS will determine the size of the nation based on the outermost islands. So we need to see this not only as a small island, as Ibu Tari said, but this is something very big asset. So again, small but big. I like that. But small issue maybe, but big problems that being faced by the small islands. We have challenges there, and I hope the nation do not see this only a short-term economy, but this is for long-term economy that we need to have these small islands as a part of our pride as an archipelagic state. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Chichi. I agree, and very snappy statements as well. Yeah, so yeah, for the next one will be Professor Tapan. We will come out at any takeaway message from you. Please, the floor is yours as well.
Once again, thank you for this opportunity, and I completely echo Professor JJ. that we really need to really think for the future in a way that that not just a short-term view, because these small islands are really great place for ecosystem services and a great opportunity for the futures to come. I just want to comment that we really need to think about developing more market instruments to self-sustain the management of ecosystems, because we cannot always seek for external support, particularly financial support. So we really need more market-based instrument, as I have said in my presentation as well, to develop, and then utilizing that that sources of the revenue for the utilization of management and enrichment of the natural ecosystem. So I think, once again, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Tapan. Yeah, I agree. And let's move on to Bapak Ahmad Bayhaki for the takeaway message. And
thank you, Byrne.
The first yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to make a remark that it is quite, I wouldn't say surprising, but it is nice to see that from the presentations today, we have the same understanding and pretty much have the same ideas on how to manage the small islands in Indonesia, even from Brisbane far away, right? So it was really nice to see presentations from our colleagues and friends from the academias, and then I really hope that we can work hand in hand, so development partners like World Bank, the government of Indonesia, the academics, and from the comments and question in the chat, we have so many friends from the NGOs as well, voicing out the same thing. So Lautra only has 3 WPPs at the moment to work on, but it's, our capacity are also limited. So we need all the help we can from every aspects and sectors of development in Indonesia. So I hope we can work together to improve the small islands and the livelihoods of the people. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paki. Yeah. So as Paki said, we all agree with the way we should manage small islands ecosystems and their sustainable livelihoods as well. We have 4 wonderful speakers from very diverse backgrounds speaking for us today, and I think it's time for us to close this wonderful conversation. I think it's time for me to give Mbak Lia the floor as well. Mbak Lia, thank you.
Thank you very much, Aga. You've shared this wonderfully, and thank you for Prof. Kathleen and then all the speakers, Ibu Tari, Prof. JJ, Prof. Tapan, Pak Aki, and then Ibu Erna Witular as well, to give a very wonderful review. And then just to reflect on what Prof. JJ said, I think out of all those thousands of islands, I've only visited like less than 10. And most of them are like in Lombok, all the Trigilis and the surrounding areas. So I still have a lot to go. 40 years is quite a long time. So thank you, Prof. And thank you everyone who is joining and the participants. And then before I close this session, I would like to share the result of the polling. It's very interesting. So yeah, you can see the result right now, and I am about to share my screen to show the viewers from YouTube about our result. So anyone can see this, yeah? Okay, so hold on, go back, yeah. 545 people vote, so that's really great. Mas Aki would be happy. It's a good result. So 25% of you are from national government, 10% from local government, 6% private sector, 53% academia, this is the most majority, 6% from NGOs, 10% community, and 4% media. We have some media friends here as well, so that's great. And then in which area can the university contribute more to small islands community development? Please choose 3 answers. This is a question from Mas Aki. So the most majority said that more engagement with government, NGOs, and the private sectors to promote collaboration. 61% participants chose that one. 54% chose more policy research that impacts small islands and their livelihood. 52% said that do more applied science research. For example, how to improve seaweed farming production. And then 50%, the bottom one, is encourage more students to do internship in the small islands. Sorry, the question is cut up. So yeah, this is the result of the polling for today. We will share the result to the speakers as well, maybe for your next report or research, because 545 people joining, so that's great. So thank you again for everyone who is joining. It was wonderful session, and for participants who stay until the end of the session, we have full capacity of the Zoom, and then also hundreds of people joining from YouTube. I know some of you asking for the materials. With the speaker's permission, we have already uploaded those in our Google Drive account, which you can access through our Facebook account, Institute for Sustainable Earth and Resources. Handika will share the screen after this to share you the link, but also you can check in the chat box. And for those of you who need certificates, we also provide a form which you can fill in the link, and then later Handika will send you all the certificates. And for next week, we are moving towards the next theme, which is about low carbon transition. And we will have people from Bappenas and local government, and then also some academics to join our webinar next week to discuss about SDGs and Paris Agreement, and then how climate action needs to be improved, the ambition here in Indonesia and elsewhere amidst the pandemic. So it will be a great discussion on that. So hopefully you can also join those few sessions on the low carbon transition, and then see you again next week. Thank you again, everyone.
Bye,
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Ibu. Terima
Yeah.
kasih semuanya. So maybe we can do, everyone is still here. We can do like last picture.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. Ibu
Could you start? Byrne is not here. Ibu Byrne, could you start the video? Or maybe later we can insert that. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Nah, great. Ibu Erna. You hiding. You hiding. All right. 1, 2, 3. Handika. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yay! Great. Terima kasih semuanya. Thank you very much. We have participants everywhere. Yeah. Hold on. I'll make Handika the host so that he can share.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You can leave now.
Thank you very much.
We will stay for a bit. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Congratulations.
Terima kasih Bu Erna, terima kasih sudah participate, sudah ikut.
Very interesting.
Iya, Ibu. Thank you, Bu.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Aga. That was great. Wonderful.
Thank you.
We chose the right person for chairing this webinar.
Oh, okay.
Hope you still stick with us for our next research, yeah? So
okay, I will.
I will be in touch with you. So yeah, you can leave now because Handika is still here to
no worries.
to show this slide. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Bye Bapak Ibu. Saya mohon izin leave dulu ya.
Apa lagi?